This conference will now be recorded.
Open in front of me and some notes that I can look at through our discussion of this beautiful topic of the prayers and the story of Gajendra. Firstly, I'd like to offer my obeisances to all the devotees. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for listening. And also like to offer my obeisances to our gurus, to our sampradaya. A very quick prayer. नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवाद नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं So I'll speak a little bit loudly just to make sure everyone can hear me clearly, because of course with online conferencing sometimes we do have volume issues and hearing issues. Just to give a quick introduction on how we'll take the session across, and I normally like to do this so that the listeners know what to look up to, what is possibly we're going to be covering through the session. First comes first is a lot of us have heard about Gajendra and the story of Gajendra and what happened, the past life of Gajendra and the crocodile Hoo, and how the events have sort of come into play. So because of that, and because of course we're limited by time, and Bhagavatam is an endless ocean of amazing glorification stories, but most importantly philosophical learnings that we can take from it. I'm not going to delve too much into this story. I'm going to try to keep it very basic, summarized, bring out the most important points that we can talk about. But the main focus of our discussion will be breaking down, number one, some of the philosophical points covered not only in the verses but also in the purpose. And the second thing was to bring out certain themes from three chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially about the story of Gajendra, the prayers of Gajendra, and what happened after. So we're going to cover all these themes together. I'm going to try to touch upon some of the verses that have been covered overall in the story. And so we're just going to take it through theme-wise that way. And I'm going to bring out some important, interesting philosophical points. By nature, I'm an analytical person. I like to present things in a simple flowchart way to bring out certain points. So because of time limitation, I've prepared only 3 slides, but I think the 3 slides can speak for itself, and they just summarize some important points that we're trying to make. The first interesting background about Gajendra is, why does the Srimad Bhagavatam focus on this story, and why is this story brought about, right? So you can know about so many instances of different elephants who've actually faced the wrath of a crocodile on a pond. But why Gajendra? What is so significant about this particular pastime, right? That way, you use so many pastimes through the scriptures of all these amazing stories. But what is the most important aspect that comes out of these pastimes? It's two things. Number one is how the character or this devotee who's in that pastime actually reacts to the situation. That's number one. And number two is we take certain morals from these pastimes. So these are the two basic important things about why Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic scriptures. It's not just giving us a story, but Srimad Bhagavatam wants us to learn. So we see the example of Gajendra, the way Gajendra reacted after being put in this situation is extremely special. You can see the stages of development. In fact, I have a nice slide that just draws a flowchart, which I'll just come to. And so this is what makes it extraordinary. The same way you look at Draupadi, there's so many women who are going through difficult situations, through tribulations. But what specifically makes the pastime of Draupadi so special, so different? Because first of all, she had the mercy of the Lord. There's no question about that. Oops, let me just either mute myself for a bit so that you don't hear the WhatsApp noises. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'll reduce the volume. Okay, Sorry about that. And yeah, just the example of Draupadi, for example, how she dealt with the situation. She had the mercy of the Lord. She had the capacity to deal with the situation. The Lord gave her the energy. But how she reacted to the situation, how she called out, she knew that she was in a position of distress. But the situation that we all face is not all of us understand that, first of all, we are even in a position of suffering, right? Let me take you through a very interesting slide that I have made. I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen. I know it's very simplistic. Normally, I'm a little bit more creative with some things that I put out, but here we're just looking at value rather than taking time. So substance over form is what we call it in the accounting knowledge. So if you look at the left flow, this particular slide and the story of Gajendra in general is talking about how these stages of surrender actually come about. The first thing that happens, right? The first stage of our Sambandhi Jnana understanding is that we are struggling.
Not changed your.
Hare Krishna
Way
Prabhu.
to think about, or even to develop any sort of spiritual inquisitiveness to know
Hare
where we stand. And so if you see in the example of Gajendra, he understands that he's in a position of struggle. But does that come immediately? No, that comes after smelling the fragrance of the lotus. So when Gajendra was walking with all his family as a leader of the pack, lions were getting scared in the forest. It's so beautifully described in the Bhagavatam. So as he was walking, the whole world was shaking. He was walking with such gusto and
Hare
pride.
Krishna, can't see.
So attracted by the smell of these lotus flowers, a little bit intoxicated. And so
Hare
he went to
Krishna.
the pond. He was so enamored by the smell of the pond. Have a bath in this pond, so enamored to drink the water. But he was also enamored to show his friends and family such a leader. He puts himself forward, right? But what Gajendra didn't know is really what is actually waiting for him in that pond, that position of difficulty, right? Madhu Prabhu is calling me. I'm not sure. No? Oops. I think Madhu Prabhu has called me by mistake. I was thinking that he might have called about something relating to the stream. Anyway,
Hare Krishna.
so struggle, understanding that we're struggling, understanding that we're in a situation of difficulty. The second thing is how you slowly develop that you are lost. Yeah, right? Understanding you are lost. So once we understand that we're in this material world and we're struggling, we're in a position of difficulty, then only slowly we can understand that we're not in this position. We don't belong in this material world. So there's a very interesting point that is actually made in a lecture that I heard recently by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He makes a very subtle difference between struggle and pain, right? So in the material sense, and according to our scriptures, struggle is something that's a blanket. In this material world, dukkhalayam ashashvatam is a position of struggle. Everyone is struggling. Whether we know it or not, we are struggling. But the fact is, not everyone feels the pain of the struggling. You only feel the pain of the struggle once you try to understand what the struggle is. Then only you know you're struggling. So there's a very slight difference between struggle and pain, right? So we as devotees, we are lucky enough that we have this knowledge to be able to understand that we are struggling in the universe because we have the ability to understand pain because we're disconnected from our spiritual constitutional position, right? And so once you understand that you're lost, that you don't belong here, then you understand that you belong in an other platform, in an other universe. You don't belong in this universe, right? So then you understand that you're looking for some sort of alternative shelter. There's something not right. There's something not right with this vision, right? So like if you see the example of Gajendra, once he goes into the pond, then who in his past life with a crocodile comes and grabs hold of the feet of Gajendra. And once he grabs hold of the feet of Gajendra, until then, Gajendra was enjoying, relaxing, enjoying with his family, and it was all good. But immediately once once the crocodile grabbed hold of Gajendra, he knew that he was in a position of compromise. It didn't strike him how badly he was, but he knew that he's in a position of compromise. He knew he didn't belong in that pond at that particular time. Okay, and so now we see how this flowchart flows with the story and this way that Gajendra's consciousness develops. And so now, once the crocodile has grabbed hold of Gajendra's legs, you can see very interestingly that it sinks its teeth into Gajendra, very deep, very tight. And so then what happens is Gajendra understands that he's in a position of danger, right? It doesn't immediately strike him that he's in a position of death, it strikes him that he's in a position of danger. Then what starts happening is you see a battle ensuing for how many years? For 1,000 years, right? 1,000 celestial years that this battle is ongoing, it's happening. And so then what happens is once Gajendra realizes that he's in this position of compromise, what does he do immediately? His first instinct, if you go back and even see in this picture, you see here on the right corner, you can see his family, friends, his tribe, his herd of elephants looking at him, waiting for him. So the verse also mentions how Gajendra looks for his family members for support, right? So when we're in a position of compromise, we are also looking for family, friends to seek some shelter so that they can give us some guidance. Then what happens? Gajendra realizes.
Okay. Your slides are not moving in.
Yeah, that's fine. That is by design.
Okay. That's by design.
Can you see my slides now? Can you see the slide here?
The flow chart, no, 1 and 2.
That's fine. That's what I want to be.
There.
Yeah.
Is it there?
Yeah.
For you?
Only
The
that.
Gajendra picture is shown.
Now it has come.
Okay. Now you can see it?
Now it's coming.
Okay.
Now
I'm going to leave it at this because I believe the slide has some problem. We have, of course, had some discussions as to how the struggle actually grows. So we understand, we look for help from loved ones. Gajendra looks at his family, looks at his friends, seeks for help. Then immediately what happens is whose teeth are so deeply sunk into Gajendra's legs, Gajendra is not even able to wriggle. He's not able to move his leg, right? And we'll cover a little bit later when we're covering the themes as to how Gajendra's feeling of being lost, feeling of not belonging in the right situation is actually adding to Huhu's strength, right? So as Gajendra is struggling more and more, he's first of all not in his inhabitant position. Then secondly, what happens is Gajendra is not supported by any of his herd. They are trying to pull him out, they're not able to get him out. Then Gajendra doesn't have an option. He has to look higher than that. Then where does he go after that? He starts looking into the skies and then thinks about demigods. Is it possible that maybe demigods can save me? You can see it's a train of thought. He doesn't actually call out for the demigods. But Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur actually mentions that at the spur of the moment, he was looking at demigods, but never even crossed his mind again after that. So he's seeking for help. He's looking for something higher, right? Immediately what happens after that, he understands the danger of the material world and the creation. He understands that, okay, now I'm grappled over here. I'm lost. I'm stuck in this position of compromise. I don't know what to do anymore. Now I'm stuck in this cycle. I have to either fight my own battle or find an alternative higher source, right? And so then Gajendra seeks out for higher help. So after all these battles, after all these difficulties, Gajendra then looks at prayer and surrender as an option to consider when he's going through this whole pastime. And so you can see through the example of Gajendra, what is interesting is he has to go through all these stages of different understanding. Can you imagine that 80% of this flow chart is just his understanding of Sambandha, understanding of his relationship with him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the material world and what he's doing, right? And so it took him a relatively long flow chart to be able to approach the Lord. So he went through a lot of difficulty to be able to approach the Lord, right? We are in a position of ease. We are in a position of, well, a relatively easier position in a way that we already have these teachings. The knowledge is being shared with us. Gajendra is in a situation where he was the leader. The knowledge was not shared with him, right? We are in a position where the knowledge is shared with us. So we should know how to move through this cycle, through this flowchart, even quicker to be able to jump into that position of surrender, right? And so eventually Gajendra goes into prayer and surrender. We'll talk more about surrender a little bit after this. I'm hoping you can see my screen because I put some thought into this slide. This slide is pretty interesting. I know at first you see a lot of boxes here. It's a little bit confusing to understand what is going on. but I will take you through it. This is a summary of how Srila Prabhupada actually brings together the whole pastime of Gajendra almost as an analogy. He uses the pastime as an analogy to understand the different concepts. It's very, very interesting. We'll start from bottom and then we'll move to the top. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this will help you put together this whole scenario very easily. It describes the situation of three particular elements in this whole creation. The first element is the sun. The second element is the clouds, right? So you have the sun, and then you have, yeah, you have the sun, and then you have clouds, and then you have the person who has material vision. So the sun, what the sun can do is it can decide, first of all, when the clouds are actually able to gain water. So by the effect of the sun, the ocean water evaporates into the clouds. And once the ocean water evaporates into the clouds, then the clouds can generate water to pour rain. And the second power the sun has, it has the ability to split the clouds and then to come and look down upon creation, right? And then we look at the second element, which is clouds or prabhava. So these are formed by the mercy of the sun, as I explained earlier. And it also has the ability to cover the sun, right? So the clouds can retrench water for rain, but it also has the ability to cover the sun. And the third element is the human eye. When we are trying to see the sun, we don't have this power to move the clouds. When we're trying to see the sun from here, do you think you'd be able to poke the clouds and move? Not at all. We don't have that power. We don't have the ability in us. The second thing that we don't have is, because of our senses are so imperfect, then we start believing, because the clouds are covering the sun, right? We stop believing that the sun even exists. Because we're not able to see it with our own eyes, we don't believe that the sun exists. And then what happens? Then we start undermining ourselves. Then we don't believe in our ability to even see. If I'm not able to see the sun and this brightness in this world, then my eyes, there is something definitely wrong with it. So what this whole situation actually explains, putting into context, is now we look at sun as the Lord himself. So the Lord is the one that actually empowers this material creation. This material creation are like the clouds, and of course the human eye is a marginal energy, which is us. So the sun can decide when it's giving rainwater to these clouds, when it's giving power to this material manifestation, to this creation. And the sun can also decide when it wants to come out of, move the clouds aside and come and watch material creation. The sun can also decide when it wants to hide behind these clouds, right? And same way, the clouds, they are completely dependent on the sun. So the material connection of Maya Shakti is completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, right? And so the clouds cover the sun in this way, and they cover the sun. And but for us, we are the humans, because we're in a position of this compromise. Because of Maya Shakti, we're not able to see. We'll cover this verse later. There's another very similar verse in Gajendra Moksha as well, Maya Javini Kachanam. And in Gajendra Moksha, it said, Nayasya Deva Rishaya Padam Vidurjantu, right? Very interesting verse. We'll come to that immediately after. So anyway, coming back to this diagram. So we have the sun over here. I hope you can see my cursor. We have the clouds, which is Maya. And then we have, of course, us as a vision over here, who's trying to look up into the Lord. Now, at this position of compromise, immediately, because the clouds are covering the sun, clouds are covering the Lord, we don't believe he exists. But then what happens is, after digging, when we put in a position of difficulty, then we try this supreme realization. We try to step over that field of knowledge to understand that something higher exists, right? And so if we see in this diagram, it's such a simple painting that's so beautifully done, but it has so many elements to it. And Srila Prabhupada explains all these elements very clearly, right? So now when we're trying to see the Lord and the clouds are blocking, who is the one person that can allow us to give this vision? Who is the one person that can clear the clouds for us to see the Lord directly? Is Guru, right? Or guidance. Luckily for Gajendra, although he didn't have a Guru present immediately there, he had Chaitya Guru, and he also had the opportunity of a previous lifetime, where as Indradumna, he was practicing. So because of karmic reaction, because of karmic accumulation, Gajendra was already in a position where he understood the process, right? So through Chaitya, Guru Krishna was communicating to him that this is the path that you have to take. So Gajendra immediately realized what he had to take. So this is most of us, but in the pastime of Gajendra, the Guru is the one who clears the cloud, right? When Gajendra actually picks up the lotus flower and offers it to the Lord, this is through the guidance of the Guru. So this flower stands for devotion, right? Or also offering, our sadhana, our practice. When Gajendra is trying to get out of this material world, like explained earlier, he has this crocodile that has trapped him. He has a family that tried to help him, but not able to help him in his own way. We see this verse also coming in Prahlad. Matirna Krishna Paratasvatova Mito Abhibhadeta Grahavritana. Right? You can try to look for friends, you can look for support, you can look for other people, but at the end of the day, the process is yours. So regardless of the herd of elephants that were there waiting to support Gajendra, the only person who can support himself is Gajendra himself through his own practice, right? So now when we look at this crocodile of the material world, there's some really beautiful analogies given about this crocodile. So the crocodile has completely grabbed into Gajendra's leg, caught hold of him, took hold of him and captured him completely. And so now when we look at this crocodile, it has sharp teeth and it's captured Gajendra. Some beautiful analogies are given where these teeth, like their duality of teeth, like how we have different types of teeth for different purposes. We have canines, but we have our molars. So some of them are feel good teeth. They are okay for digesting the food. The same way we have very rough, edged, sharp teeth that cut through, right? So when we are in this material world and we are caught by this crocodile, sometimes we feel very comfortable in a situation very nicely that the teeth that is grabbing us is okay. I'm not feeling the pain that much, but actually it's keeping us, it's grappling us and keeping us trapped in this material world. But sometimes there may be teeth that pain us very much, that give us a lot of difficulty. And this comes back to the point earlier that we're making about pain and struggle. So sometimes we feel the pain, sometimes we don't feel the pain, but actually we are always in a position of struggle in this material world. That is the nature, right? And now when we talk about the crocodile, it's the grabbing tendency of the material world. So when we talk about Maya, we might even cover this later. Maya actually has two particular powers, right? The first power of Maya is called Prakshepatmika. Prakshepatmika Shakti means the ability of Maya to pull you down, right? And the second power of Maya, or the second energy of Maya, is covering energy. So one energy is for Maya to pull you down, which is here, right? She's pulling you down from here like the crocodile is. But the second of power of Maya is Avaranatmika Shakti, right? Here we see the clouds over here, how Maya is trying to cover our vision to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this one picture, we can see these two tendencies of Maya to completely cloud our vision. One, she holds us back in the material world, and the second, she covers a lot. But don't worry, it's a very interesting, and I'm so glad I found this answer after hearing a lecture recently. Found out that Krishna also has two very interesting Shaktis and way of dealing with his devotees. One is called Taraka Shakti, right? Which liberates the person of distractions or emotions. Taraka Shakti will liberate us from these distractions, detachment from material nature. But Krishna also has another Shakti called Paraka Shakti, where through his attraction, right, through his potency, he will pull you towards him, right? So we have to make the decision which one of these different elements we want to influence our life even more, right? So in one sense, Gajendra was attracted by this pond, the desires of this material world, and he came into this pond and he was trapped, right? And the crocodile, all these things enticing him because of the Shakti, because of the power of Maya. But eventually he came to the realization that there's a higher power. So Krishna, through his Paraka Shakti, is pulling Gajendra back towards him, right? And so this pastime talks about so many of these different concepts put together in one. So what I don't mind is I don't mind sharing this slide with everyone after the class, and so you can have a look at it. This is just my summary of how Srila Prabhupada has put together the analogy of the whole pastime of Gajendra in one slide, right? The symbolism of the different aspects of Gajendra in one slide, and how we can look for the highest of the highest purpose. And now is where we enter the most important part of the whole discussion, that now we've laid a good foundation of our whole understanding. I'm going to spend the last, say, half an hour covering different themes of these pastimes. I was going to ask for questions, but we can have that in the end. That's fine. So key themes. Just excuse me because I created these slides towards the last minute. So please excuse me. These may not be in the order that I would like to convey to you. But if you, once I've completed all my points, you'll be able to use this slide as a measure. What I'm hoping is everyone can clearly read what is on the slide. I'll make it as big as I can. There we go. I think that should help a lot. Okay. Now, some of the key points, key pillars of what we're looking into this pastime. First of all, influence of Maya. We talked about this in detail, right? So the crocodile was pulling the elephant, the crocodile was pulling Gajendra. And what happened is these very three different things that happened over here. The elephant, it says in one of the purports, and I've copy pasted and put it here, the elephant became diminished in mental, physical, and sensual strength. But the crocodile, on the contrary, being an animal of the water, being in its natural, comfortable position, increased in enthusiasm, physical strength, and sensual power. So this point is very key, is very important, because what Maya actually does is when it sees that people are in a position of difficulty, right? Maya is very tricky this way, especially people who are vulnerable, people who are put in a situation of difficulty, maybe people who are going through actual difficulties in their lives, but there may also be other people who are just looking for sense gratification. Maya focuses on these people, make sure she's able to pull them down even more, right? And so you can see the example of crocodile here. Crocodile is capitalizing on the misfortune of the elephant, right? So the elephant, although he was really powerful, he could not handle the crocodile, and so during 1000s of years of fight, he could not get any food because of his bodily strength diminished. His mind also became weak, and his senses also less powerful. And so the crocodile, although was in its comfortable position, that's how it hunts, that's how it creates all its activities. So it is comfortable and it is able to execute its activities. Now, from this, we're able to take again the lesson that with Maya, we should not let Maya, we should not put ourselves in a situation where Maya is in her strength. We should try to put ourselves in a pond where Maya does not have the same effect, right? And so here Gajendra put himself in the pond where the strength of Maya was very strong. So we should be very selective as to which pond we want to enter into. So us as soldiers of this Krishna conscious movement, we must always possess three things: physical strength, physical ability to do something, the enthusiasm to be able to do it, and the mercy of the Lord. And these three things we'll cover very much detail as we move on through the discussion. And so, as being soldiers of Srila Prabhupada, it's very important that we surround ourselves with the right influence, give ourselves the right environment of people to be with, so it nurtures our Krishna consciousness rather than drag us down, right? That is point number one, which talks about our influence, which is this, right? So what I'll do is to help you out so we know which points we've covered. I will change the shape of the color there. There you go. So that should help. Importance of influence, Maya or people, right? And so we should be very careful as to who we surround ourselves with and what environment we put ourselves in. Right. Yeah, very interesting verse I put as a quote for myself is a verse that we learn quite a lot. Rite ritam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani. Right? It depends on wherever there is light, right? Whenever living entity becomes Krishna consciousness, he's immediately relieved of all his material desires. The same way if he's placed in a situation of darkness, rite artam, right? A position of darkness, that's when he's influenced by the modes of rajas, tamas, darkness, passion, right? So we should be very careful as to the environment that we pick, the influence of the people that we actually want to take, right? So that is point number one. Point number two is taking shelter, right? So from the Bhagavad Gita, there's a very popular verse. That's fine. I'm not looking to move the slide. Can everyone see my slide now? Yeah?
Now it has
Okay, just so everyone knows, don't worry if I'm not moving the slide. I actually am not looking, I don't have too many slides to present. And so almost the whole concept of my talk is covered in these slides. So you'll be okay if you're just looking at the slide, even if it doesn't. Okay, the next point I want to talk about is taking shelter, right? Who actually puts themselves in this situation? And this comes back to the flowchart we talked about in the beginning. In Bhagavad Gita, of course, we know of a very, very popular verse, Chaturvida bhajante mam, Jana sukriti norjuna, artho jignasarartarthi, jnani cha bharatarshava. So, four kinds of men: one who's in danger, one who's in need of money, one who's searching for knowledge, and one who's inquisitive. These are the four kind of five people who begin to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who begin this process of devotional service. So the king of elephants, Gajendra, Gajapati, in fact, in the first chapter, second chapter of Gajendra, he's called Gajapati, right? So the Gaja, the pati of all the elephants, Gajapati. So king of elephants, in his condition of danger, decided to seek shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, right? So we, even during our practice, we should understand that, of course, we don't want to be just pious people who are following a particular practice for a reason. We're not looking for something in return from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the only thing that can save us from this danger, save us from this difficulty, is to be able to take something, practice something tangible, something real, right? Padam padam yad vipadam natesham, right? We are put in situations where step by step we may face danger at any point. So that we're not able to go through that danger, we should be able to find the right shelter. So we should be able to know how to find good shelter at different points. In fact, there is a very good verse also in the Gajendra Moksha, in the prayers to Gajendra, and we will try doing this to the session, where we'll try to inculcate some of these themes and include some of the prayers that Gajendra is doing, so you can see his realizations as well. Didikshavo yasya padam sumangalam, vimukta sangha munayas susadavaha, charantyaloka vratama vranam vane, bhutatma bhutah suhrida same gatihi. So translation says, renunciation and great sages who seeing living beings equally, who are friendly to everyone, who flawlessly practiced in the forest vows of brahmacharya, vanaprastha, and sannyas, desire to see all the auspicious lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead be my destination, be my shelter, right? So one interesting thing for those who are taking notes as we go through this particular talk, this verse talks about three qualities of those who are looking to take shelter. And it's very clearly mentioned in the translation. I'm just breaking it down for ease of understanding. Let me just check how we're doing on time. 6:40. Okay. So the first thing we're talking about is seeing living beings equally, right? Samadarshinaha, Panditaha Samadarshina. So the first quality of these devotees who are looking for shelter, first thing is seeing living beings equally. The second thing is to be friendly to everyone, right? Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. How the Lord wants to be friendly to everyone. Sadhunam Hridayantvaham. How the Lord keeps everyone, all these sadhus in his heart, and how the sadhus keep him in his heart, right? So the person looking for shelter, the first point is seeing living beings equally. Samadarshinaha, being friendly to everyone, right? And the third thing is flawless practice, and it's very clearly mentioned over here. So these are the three qualities of those who are called vimukta sangha, right? You see in this verse, the second line, didikshavo yasya padam sumangala, vimukta sangha munayas susadava. So this vimukta sangha means they have nothing to do with the material conditions of life. They have nothing to do, absolutely nothing. And so this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to come out of this material entanglement, right? So now we've covered theme number 2, which is taking shelter during danger, right? During a position of compromise. Theme number 2. There we go. All right. And now we'll move on to the next theme, is the concept of death. So now when we look at the example of Gajendra, for example, it's mentioned also in the Bhagavatam in different purports, is Gajendra was in a situation where he was facing death. He had the realization that death is a possibility, although he's a king of the herd. But because he was fortunate enough to have more advanced level of consciousness, His worry for death eventually grew to be not that he was afraid of the concept because he'll be detached from his family. His worry for death is this crocodile is going to kill me at some point. I need to make sure that I can remember the Lord before the crocodile takes me. Because yam yam vapi smaran bhavan, right? So we have to be very careful what we're trying to remember towards this last moment of death. So Gajendra, he moved from one material dilemma to move to a spiritual dilemma, right? Gajendra was in dilemma. But it's not that he moved from a material dilemma to a spiritual solution directly. He moved through a material dilemma where he was worried about his family and friends. He moved into a spiritual dilemma. Oh my God, what if I die? Forget my family, but what if I cannot remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead when I'm giving up my body, right? And once he got the spiritual dilemma, then he knew what to do. Then, of course, he surrendered, right? So it's very interesting to see the way that his train of thought grows through this pastime, right? And so we are looking for saving from this concept of death because we're attached to the wrong thing. We should be afraid of death. There's no question about that. But not death because we're attached to this body. We should be afraid of death to make sure when we are at that time of death, we have the ability to think of the Lord. You have the example of Maharaj Katwanga, for example, right? Katwanga, he was so scared to fight the battle, etc. He made sure for those last few seconds of his life, he's able to think of the Lord, right? So this way, Gajendra evolved his consciousness that this death, this concept of death, could come very soon. Am I going to be able to think of this Lord? Am I going to just think about the struggle that I am, or can I be able to think about this Lord? This is a challenge for us. Why? Because at one point we're being pulled from here, and when we have to fight all these different battles, how do we think about a higher consciousness? How do we think about the concept of death? And this is answered very nicely in another verse. I'm not picking the order of these verses, I'm taking it thematically. So please excuse me, we are trying to scroll through the verse list, but maybe you can see it later. How are we doing on time? 6:45. Okay. So even impersonalists who stress the knowledge feature of the Lord want to merge in the effulgence of this Lord, right? And the verse which talks about is Namah Shantaya Ghoraya Mudhaya Gunadharmine Nirvisheshaya Samyaya Namo Jnana Ghanaya Cha. Right? So here the word Jnana Ghanaya indicates that for atheists who disbelieve in the form of the Lord and existence of the Lord and all these various incarnations that appear. So what happens here is we are not able to think of the form of the Lord when you're able to give up at the time of death, right? So the Lord has all these incarnations, all these forms, but we are so lost, we're so attracted by our own body, we're not able to think about these different leelas, these different avatars, these different incarnations of the Lord. And so this is a very interesting way that they put of it. And he says later on in one of the verses, Gajendra says, Madrik Prapanna Pashupasha Vimokshanaya. Pashu Pasha. I am like an animal. I am bound by the jaws of these beasts. Then Muktaya Bhuri Karunaya Namo Layaya. Right? Namo Layaya. Right? And so he's thinking, I am calling out to you because you are not bound by the wrath of this material world. Right? And one very important philosophical point that is made here by Srila Prabhupada is he says, Namo Layaya. So I'm only calling out to you. I'm not calling out to anyone else. Move the clouds aside. I'm not calling out to the demigods who are waiting for me to call them. I'm calling out only directly to you. Muktaya Bhuri Karunaya. So he says, you are the only one who's not bound by this wrath of this material world. So I'm calling out to you. You can see the difference here. The demigods are still subject to the modes of material nature, are still subject to the material world. And so clearly Gajendra is saying here, I'm not calling out to those who are subject to the laws of matter. I'm calling out to that person who is not subject to it. I'm only calling out to you. Muktaya Bhuri Karunaya Namo Layaya. Right? And so Gajendra's prayers were that he doesn't fear death. Coming back to the point, he fears that he will be in a position of death without remembering the glorious form of the Lord, right? And you see this, I remember my elder brother Pundarik Keshava was covering this last week, Aham Hare Tava Padaika Mula, where you see the prayers of Vritrasura, and he's praying for a similar thing, that at the time of death, I need to be able to make sure I'm engaging myself, I'm trying to remember the Lord, right? And so this is another point, is death, which somehow I have seemed not to cover in these points. Anyway, we will move on. Since I'm short on time, I'm going to make sure I'm moving through my points really quickly. How the Lord can sometimes not be seen very clearly, right? And so we talked about this earlier, about the example of the clouds, the example of the sun, right? In Kunti Stuti, Kunti Maharani prays Maya Javinikachanam Agnya Dokshajam Avyayam. In Gajendra Moksha, Gajendra has a very similar prayer where he's saying Nayasya Deva Rishaya Padam Vidur Jantuhu Punah Korati Gantumiritum Yatana Tasya Kritibir Vicheshato Duratyayanu Kramanas Samavatu. Right? This is very similar in a way. He says that it cannot be understood by different movements, by the audience, cannot be understood by activities, cannot be understood by demigods or great sages, right? Because all of them are unintelligent like animals, right? And so he's saying that can only be understood by a very specific group of people, right? People who are really looking for spiritual purification. Then the next verse I want to talk about, which is in a very similar context, talks about Nama Atma Pradipaya Sakshine Paramatmane Namo Giram Viduraya Manasas Chetas Samapi. Right? And so now we come back to the same concept about the Lord as a sun. Nama Atma Pradipaya. Pradeep means self-effulgent, one who gives enlightenment. Right? And then the second line is very important. It has two meanings to it. Sakshine Paramatmane. So being Paramatma, he remembers Gajendra from his previous life, right? So being the Sakshi, being always present as Chaitya Guru, being present as a Paramatma, he remembers Gajendra's previous life. So the Supreme Lord is more benevolent to give his Kripa Siddhi, right? To give his Kripa so that the devotee can have that Kripa Siddhi, right? And then he talks about Namo Giram Viduraya Manasas Chetasamapi. So these three things here that Gajendra says that the Lord cannot be achieved by, which is very interesting, and it talks about same concept, how we cannot see clearly with our vision. Three things: Giram Viduraya Manasas Chetasamapi. Giram means Gira means the tongue, the ability to speak. So you cannot be seen by Giram, cannot be seen by Manasas, by the mind, and cannot be seen by Cheta, by intelligence, right? And so he cannot be seen by any three of this. So how can we reach the Lord? How can we actually serve him, right? And so Gajendra is clearly saying here the only way is to the part of bhakti. Krishna is only looking at our sincere endeavor, not how we engage all these things very devotional in a different way, because these three are not the only means to be able to serve the Lord. We need to do it with bhava, with real bhakti, because Krishna's bhava grahi janardana. He looks at the effort that we're putting, right? And it comes, we cover this verse later also, satvena pratilabhyaya naishkarmyena vipaschita. Only by bhakti, right? He's saying that you cannot do this and you cannot do all these different things. You cannot do it by house, by health, by wealth, by various servants, but the only way is through sincere endeavor and devotion. The last point that I'd like to cover, very interestingly, and maybe last 2 points possibly, is the eternality of Maya, right? Gajendra was fighting with this crocodile for thousands of years, right? We've been in this consciousness, in this material world, God knows how many bodies, for thousands of years, right? And even though we've aged so much as a soul in this material world, we are not able to understand that concept of the Lord, right? The same way, these teeth were actually grappled on Gajendra's leg for thousand celestial years, right? And then only eventually Gajendra had the realization to be able to hold up a flower, lotus flower to the Lord and call for help, seek for help, right? So this is the next point. Then the important point also I wanted to talk about how Gajendra, the demigods themselves could not help Gajendra. So the demigods are waiting there. It says in the purport that the demigods are waiting in the spiritual skies, looking for Gajendra to actually call out to them. They're waiting for Gajendra to actually look up to them, right? But Gajendra never even considered them. Madrik Prapanna, right? He's bound by these jaws of the beast. But he moved the clouds away and directly only focused. Ekantino yasina kanchanartam vanchanti evai bhagavat prapanna. His vancha, his desire, his itcha was only ekantino. It was one-minded, right? He had one vision, right? Gayanta Ananda Samudra Magna. So he sang in devotion with this one-minded attention fixed only on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And so this is a very interesting point, and it's a perfect time to quote a verse how the demigods, of course we talked about this earlier, is yata taror mula nisechanena tripyanti tat skanda bhujopashaka. So as you pour water on the root, it energizes the trunk, the branches, and everything else, right? And so we should be very careful as to what prayers we're looking for and always address them directly to the Lord. And the last point I'd like to conclude this session with, which is absolutely important and the most important part of this. In fact, if you don't mind, Bandhu Baladev Prabhu and Jagjeev Jagannath Prabhu, if I can take just a few more minutes, probably until 7 o'clock, to cover this last point and conclude this session, is talk about surrender. So Srimad Bhagavatam actually has multiple themes that are covered through the whole of the Bhagavatam. But the last and the most important item, the 10th item, is called Ashaya, Yogam Yunjan Madashaya, right? And so even later on, we can see so many examples of people even earlier who eventually they got to this position of surrender, right? This is one very overarching theme, and I left the best for the last so that we're able to really take this deep into heart. I pulled out a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita over here. Unfortunately, I don't remember the exact reference to it, but everyone knows this verse. Anukulasya sankalpa pratikulasya varjanam rakshishyati iti vishvaso goptritve varnam tatha atma nikshepa karpanye sadvidha sharanagatihi. Sharanagatihi, this process of surrender. There is 6, right? 6 divisions. First thing is acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service. The second is rejection of unfavorable things. We see both of this especially displayed through that diagram of Gajendra. Then the third thing is conviction that Krishna will give protection. This is what Gajendra actually won his battle eventually, because he had that conviction that Krishna will eventually come to protect me. Rakshishyati iti vishvaso. Then the fourth point is the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian. So once he knew that I don't have any other way than Rakshishyati iti vishvaso, then he said that the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian is the only way. Full surrender with full humility, right? So these 6 items of surrender are so key in our understanding. This is called normally Shadanga Saranagati, which means the 6 types of surrender. And the last and the most important thing is Trinadapi Sunichena, how to be meek and humble. So you can see through Gajendra's prayers how he was so meek and humble, and eventually he was pulled down to that position, right? So you see this example so much. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he comes under the direct protection of Krishna. And so Krishna gives him all the intelligence which he can use to advance in the spiritual realization, right? And so you can see in the example of Gajendra how eventually he was given the spiritual knowledge, Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. So when he was calling out to the Lord, eventually knowledge was following him in the same way. And through this knowledge, he was able to improve. And finally, his ultimate goal is what we'll conclude this session with, which I'll keep it as a suspense from now. And so this concept of surrender, you can see how Gajendra had to go through all these different stages, all these tribulations, all these difficulties. But you can ask this question: what only if Gajendra already knew about this type of practice? What he actually did, right? He was a liberated soul. He already knew about this practice. But the problem is, it was covered by Maya, right? However advanced of a devotee you are, until you perfect your sadhana, perfect your spiritual practice, until that stage, you're still under the principles of Maya. You can still anytime be pulled down. So that point, until that point, Gajendra was clouded in spite of all his past life activities. So this process of surrender is absolutely important. And we heard a class last week in Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, where even Arjuna was in a position of partial surrender. Initially, he says Asochan Anvasocha Swam, and he eventually says, Krishna, I'm lost all my miserly weakness. I surrender unto you. Then he says 2 verses later, no, but I will not fight this battle. So the fact that he's going back and telling Krishna, no, I'll not fight this battle, shows that he was not fully surrendered until actually the end of this Gita. There's one very interesting verse from Ramayana that I heard many months ago when I attended one Ramayana class, which Nand Kumar Prabhu had quoted about the part of Sharanagati, and I'll finish this theme of surrender here, which is spoken by Rama, and Hanuman absolutely broke down in tears after hearing this. Rama says, it is my vow that if one seriously surrenders unto me, saying that he is mine, he shall immediately award courage to that person. So once you surrender, the first thing that you actually directly get from the Lord is you'll get courage. You'll get that courage to be able to come up, deal with the situations, deal with the difficulties, and focus on His service. Right? So we should be very mindful that the Lord is always looking for our well-being. So this process of surrender is because Lord is looking for our well-being, and as He sees us really accept the surrender, He gives us the courage to be able to deal with any material difficulties that we may have. Right? So now to come closer to the ending, what actually, coming back to the story, what actually happens in the end? And one verse I'd like to say also, Sarvendriya Gunadrishtre Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. So how the Lord, Gajendra is saying, is the Lord is Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. That means He's a solution to all the doubts of the material afflictions and miseries that are happening in this material world. And right? And so how the Lord is actually giving all the solutions, everything you need, all you need to do is surrender. And so ultimately, once Gajendra surrenders, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because Gajendra surrenders, he was the king of the elements, he had been touched by the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was immediately freed of all material ignorance and bondage. And thus he received Sarupya Mukti, right? Where he got the form of the Lord, right? His body turns into a spiritual body and he went back home to Godhead with the Lord himself, right? So you can see this Sarupya Mukti also, Dhruva Maharaj, right? And Prabhupada makes a very nice point in this purport, is how touching the Lord is so important. The touch of the Lord is so key. He talks about how you can get Archana Siddhi or Archana Padhati, just daily worship of the deity, where you're touching the deity every day and dealing with him lovingly, can immediately get you that benediction of Sarupya Mukti, right? We're not looking for Sarupya Mukti. That is not our goal. But that is the minimum we will get if we even perform our deity worship, minimum deity worship. While you see the example of Huhu, crocodile, when the Lord finally came, he held Gajendra, held the crocodile in his hand, cut the crocodile with his disc. The crocodile actually also got liberation. And one very interesting thing which my father was very kind to share with me, he talked about how this crocodile achieved liberation. One, because the Lord came to save him, save Gajendra. The Lord wanted to protect his devotees. But the most important point was why crocodile was given liberation is because he was holding the lotus feet of a pure devotee of the Lord. So all these things put together, we have so many things that we can learn from the pastime of Gajendra. And to conclude this section, I'd like to talk about another verse that we heard in Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya in the morning, and I liked it so much that I've saved it, and I'm hoping to learn it and also imbibe it in different classes that we have. And I'm going to conclude here. Don't worry, timekeepers. Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaisha Trika Eka Kalaha Prapadyamanasya Yathashnatashyus Tushti Pushti Kshud Apayo Anughasam. So devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. What I will do is I will copy paste this verse for you to also have a look at. And as I'm doing that, I will open up the floor for Bandhu Baladev Prabhu to conduct us through the remaining portion of what we're going to cover today. If there are, of course, any questions, I will leave it to him to take over. Thank you all for humbly listening to what I have to speak. Of course, everything that I spoke is directly from the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. Maybe a few things added here and there. But other than that, it's everything that our acharyas have actually spoken and told us directly about. So Bandhu Baladev Prabhu, Jagjeev Jagannath Prabhu, please, I open the floor back to you, give your floor back to you if you can let us know. And I don't know if everyone can hear me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So thank you for the nice presentation. So there is one query, if we can see in the meeting chat, Prabhu. And so if you can respond to that, Hare Krishna.
Sense of urgency. Okay, I just saw the question. Just for everyone's benefit, the question that Sunil Prabhu has asked us nicely is, Katwanga Maharaj knew that he was about to die very next moment. Gajendra tried first for 1,000 years before he actually surrendered to the Lord. How do we develop the sense of urgency for ourselves? We still feel that that moment is still far for us, right? And this is a good question. How do we develop a sense of urgency? And this comes back to the point that I was making earlier, right? So Katwanga Maharaj is in a situation that he knew that he was in a position of difficulty. He knew that he was in a position of surrender. He knew that he was in a position of compromise, right? Gajendra, for example, he didn't have his understanding of his relationship with the material world, with Maya and the Supreme Personality of Godhead was not clear, and he was not able to use that in practice. And because of that, immediately he was not able to look at a higher purpose. He didn't understand that he was suffering, right? That is the biggest problem that we have, is that we are not accepting that we're in a position of compromise, in a position of difficulty, in a position of suffering, right? We're seeing so many things happening around us. We're seeing the whole effect of COVID-19. We're seeing all these different practices, but we're not able to understand that we are suffering, right? Let's take a very simple example of one person who's also going through this. Look at Arjuna. Of course, it took him Bhagavad Gita during Mahabharata to understand this position of surrender. But even that, it came gradually. And I'll share with you something very, very interesting that I also heard in a class recently, is how surrender actually grows, right? So the first stage of surrender is not complete surrender, right? Surrender to a guide, surrender to a spiritual guru, where you're guided by a movement of a spiritual guru, where you understand. You can see the example of Bhagavad Gita this way, where Arjuna was guided by Krishna. The second level of surrender is conditional surrender with some assurance, right? So if you look at the example of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Charanam Bhaja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo. So Krishna has to give the assurance that he will take care of you. Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo. I will take care of you, right? And so you see the example of Mrigari and Narada also. Narada assures that he'll take care of Mrigari's sustenance, right? So this is the second level of surrender that normally happens. The third level of surrender that happens is unconditional surrender. You see the example of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj knew Krishna's plan. Krishna was not there for assurance. He was not there to tell Parikshit about what is going to happen. And so you can see this happening in Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit knew of Krishna's plan. And the last and the ultimate stage of surrender is knowledge of your constitutional position. And that is what we are covering through the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, the activities of all these people. And so sometimes we may be lucky that our surrender or our faith grows quicker than others, right? As long as we're having the realization, continuously reading. So it can be an instant or it can take a very long time. And in perfection of devotional activities, there is two types of perfection. One type of perfection is called sadhana siddhi, and the second type of perfection is called, well, the top two levels of perfection. There are other levels, archa siddhi and so many different types of perfection. But the top two, sadhana siddhi and kripa siddhi. Of course, we cannot do anything without the kripa of the Lord, but the Lord can actually have special benevolence on us due to many different circumstances. It's his choice anyway. So if the Lord is able to shine some kripa siddhi on us, then of course our process of surrender comes a lot quicker, right? Kripa siddhi normally comes through the medium of a guru. That's why it's important to not accept a spiritual master, for a spiritual master to accept you. And so the kripa siddhi flows quicker, and so hopefully the process of surrender happens quicker. So it varies from person to person. It depends on the mercy that you're getting. It depends on your sincere endeavor as well. And so that's why from Katwanga and Gajendra you can see differences. That's why you can see differences in Arjuna. That's why you can see differences in so many different pastimes in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry if I have not. I again open the floor to all our senior Vaishnavas, including mom, dad, also to be able to answer the question if they so feel. Please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you once again for the nice presentation. So if there are any further questions, So we request the devotees to post it either on the meeting chat or on the WhatsApp group. We will relay it to Prabhu and then relay back the response in the WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna. So moving on, we will now have the chanting of Gajendra Moksha by Her Grace Sitachar Mataji. So Sitachar Mataji needs no introduction for all of us. Mataji, Prabhu, if you can share the screen while you chant, all of us can chant together. So I request everyone to keep the mics on mute and then you can chant along with Mataji. Over to you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Shri Badarayana Ruvacha.
Mataji, is it possible to share the...
Yes, Prabhu, I'm just doing that. Just 1 second. Yeah.
Evam yavasito buddhya samadaya manohridi jajapa paramam japyam pragjanmani anusikshitam. Shri Gajendra uvacha. Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai Yetayetatchidatmakam Purushaya Adibijaya Pareshaya Vidhimahi Yasminnidam Yataschedam Yenedam Yayidam Swayam Yo Asmat Parasmacha Parasam Prapadye Swayambhuvam Yasvatmanidam Nijamaya Yatpitam Kvachit Vibhatam Kvachatatthirohitam Aviddadrit Sakshi Ubhayam Tadikshate Satma Mulo Avatumam Paratparaha Kalena Panchatvamiteshu Kritsnasho Lokeshu Kaleshu Cha Sarvahetushu Tamastadasid Gahanam Ghaviram Yastasya Pare Abhivirajate Vibhuhu Na Yasya Deva Rishayah Padam Vidur Jantu Puna Korhati Gantumiritum Yatha Natasya Kritibi Vicheshtato Duratyaya Anukramanaha Samavatu Didrikshavo Yasya Padam Sumangalam Vimukta Sangha Munayah Susadavaha Charantya Loka Vritam Avranam Bane Bhutatma Bhuta Smrita Same Gatihi Na Vidyate Yasya Cha Janma Karma Va
Nanama
Rupe Gunadosha Eva Va Tatapi Lokapyaya Sambhavaya Yaha Swamaya Yatanyanukalam Richati Tasmai Namah Pareshaya Brahmane Ananta Shaktaye Arupaya Urupaya Nama Ascharya Karmane Namo Atma Pradipaya Sakshine Paramatmane Namo Girami Duraya Manashaschettasamapi Satvena Pratilabhyaya Naishkarmena Vipaschita Namah Kaivalyanataya Nirvana Sutta Samhite Namah Shantaya Ghoraya Muraya Gunadarmine Nirvisheshaya Samyaya Namo Jnana Ghanaya Cha Kshetrajnaya Namastubhyam Sarvadhyakshaya Sakshine Purushaya Atmamulaya Mula Prakartaye Namaha Sarvendriya Gunadrashtre Sarva Pratyaya Hetave Asatachaya Yoktaya Sadhabhasaya Te Namaha Namo Namaste Akhila Karanaya Nishkaranaya Adbhutakaranaya Sarvagamamnaya Maharnavaya Namo Pavargaya Parayanaya Gunarnichanna Chidushmapaya Takshobha Vishpurjita Manasaya Naishkarmya Bhavena Vivarjitagama Swayam Prakashaya Namaskaromi Madrik Prapanna Pashupasha Vimokshanaya Muktaya Bhuri Karunaya Namolayaya Swamshena Sarvatanu Brahmanasi Pratita Pratyagdrishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste
आत्मात्मजातगृहवित्तजनेषु सक्तैः दुष्प्रापनाय गुणसङ्गविवर्जिताय मुक्तात्मभिः स्वहृदये परिभाविताय ज्ञानात्मने भगवते नम ईश्वराय यं धर्मकामार्थविमुक्तिकामा भजन्त इष्टां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति किं चाशिशोरात्यपि देहमव्ययम् करोतु मे अदभ्रदयो विमोक्षणम् एकान्तिनो यस्य न कञ्चनार्थम् वाञ्छन्ति ये वै भगवत्प्रपन्नाः अत्यद्भुतं चरितं सुमङ्गलं गायन्त आनन्दसमुद्रमग्नाः तमक्षरं ब्रह्म परं परेशम् अव्यक्तमाध्यात्मिकयोगगम्यम् अतीन्द्रियं सूक्ष्ममिवातिदूरम् अनन्तमाद्यं परिपूर्णमीडे यस्य ब्रह्मादयो देवा वेदालोकाश्चराचराः नामरूपविभेदेन परिज्ञा च कलया कृताः यथार्चिषो अग्निर्सवितुर्गभस्तयो निर्यान्ति संयान्ति असकृत्स्वरोचिषः तथा यतोऽयं गुणसम्प्रवाहो बुद्धिर्मनः कानि शरीरसर्गाः स वै न देवासुरमत्यतिर्यन् न स्त्री न छन्दो न पुमान् न जन्तुः नायं गुणः कर्म न सन्न चासन् निषेधशेषो जयतादशेषः जिजीविषेणाहमिहामुया किम् अन्तर्बहिश्चावृत एव योन्या इच्छामि कालेन न यस्य विप्लवः तस्यात्मलोकावरणस्य मोक्षम् सोऽहं विश्वसृजं विश्वम् अविश्वं विश्ववेदसं विश्वात्मानमजं ब्रह्म प्रणतोऽस्मि परं पदम् योगनन्दितकर्माणि योगविपाहिते योगिनोऽयं प्रपश्यन्ति योगेशं तं नतोऽस्म्यहम् नमो नमस्तुभ्यमसह्यवेग शक्तित्रयाखिल द्विगुणाय प्रपन्नपालाय दुरन्तशक्तये गदिन्द्रियाणामनवाप्यवर्त्मने नायं वेद स्वमात्मानं यच्चक्त्याहं व्याहतं तं दुरत्ययमाहात्म्यं भगवन्तं नितोऽस्म्यहम् श्रीशुक उवाच एवं गजेन्द्र उपवर्णित निर्विशेषं ब्रह्मादयो विविधलिङ्गाभिधाभिमानाः नैते यदोपसस्रुः निखिलात्मकत्वात् तत्राखिलामरमयो हरिराविरासीत् तं तत्त्वदार्थमुपलभ्य जगन्निवासः स्तोत्रं निशम्य दिविजय सह संस्तुवद्भिः छन्दोमयेन गरुड समुह्यमानः चक्रायुधो अभ्यगमात् आसूयतो गजेन्द्रः सोऽन्ति सरस्यूर्बलेन गृहीत आर्थो दृष्ट्वा गरुमति हरिमुख उपात चक्रम् उक्षिप्य साम्बुजकरं गिरमाह कृष्णान् नारायण किलो गुरो भगवन् नमस्ते तं वीक्ष्य पीडितम् अज सहसावृत्य सग्रहामाशु सहस्रकपयोजनाः ग्राहाद्विपातित मुखादरीन्द्रगरीन्द्रम् सम्पश्यतां हरिमुपच्युर्याना हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much for 10 minutes. It feels like we were inside a South Indian temple. Hare Krishna. Thank you once again.
Just one thing I'd like to add. Prabhu, there are 3 to 4 verses on the end of 4th chapter which talks about the glories of chanting this Gajendra Moksham also, which are a nice Phalastuti. So I know we don't have time now, but maybe we have people who have time at home, devotees who have time at home, can go back and read those verses. It's beautiful.
So what I would request is, in your presentation, if you can add those 4 shlokas and then send it to us, we will have it recorded and then posted in the WhatsApp group.
Okay, sure. I'll maybe before I send the presentation, I'll add a few more points that I made during the talk and I can send it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Jagan Prabhu, you would like to add anything? Hare Krishna. Or Revati Gopi Mataji? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
You're able
Prabhu,
to
yes.
hear me?
Yes, yes.
Very nice lecture and a very different way of presenting Gajendra.
This conference will now be recorded.
Manittam Adam Vittam Ahimsa Shantir Arjavam. So humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity. These are the knowledge. I've not written the full translation. So these are the knowledge, and opposite of this is called ignorance. So we can see Lord Indra, because of his pride, he has become a ignorant person because he could not value the garland brought from Vaikuntha given by Durvasa Muni to him. That's why his downfall has started. And then there's a fight. Fight happened, and all the demigods was drove out of Sargoloka. And then what happened? All the demigods were discussing among themselves that how can we solve this problem? How can we get back our glories? So they could not find any solution. Then they approached to Lord Brahma. Now, Lord Brahma, though he is a demigod, but his position is very, very unique. He is not like other demigods hankering for glories or power or nectar to be long lived, no, those things. He's not after all those things, he acts as a advisor to all the devatas, an advisor and the petitioner on behalf of them, all the devatas, to the Lord. So when all the demigods come to Lord Brahma understood the problem, and they said, okay, let's go to Lord Vishnu. So Lord Brahma take all the demigods to Vishnu's abode, which is Shwetadeep in Milk Ocean. And there we see their elaborate prayer takes place. All the demigods together with Brahma, Shiva, everybody does a lot of prayer to Lord Vishnu. So we can see verses number in 5th chapter, verses 26 to 50, all are the prayers to Lord Vishnu by the demigod. 25 slokas, So we cannot take up all the sloka. I have just taken a few of them, a couple of them. So I'll go through the translation of that. Lord Brahma, let's see 8.5.26. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Lord, O changeless, unlimited, supreme truth, you are the origin of everything. Being all pervading, you are in everyone's heart and also in the atom. You have no material qualities. Indeed, you are inconceivable. The mind cannot catch you by speculation, and words fail to describe you. You are the supreme master of everyone, and therefore you are quite worshipable to everyone. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. So this is the beautiful prayers all the demigods is offering to Lord Vishnu. Another shloka here. When one pours water on the root of a tree, the trunk and branches of the tree are automatically placed. Similarly, when one becomes a devotee of the Lord Vishnu, everyone is served, for the Lord is the super soul of everyone. Now, the similar shloka you can find in Canto 4 also, 4.31, 31.40. Yatha taror mulan shesanan, almost similar meaning. So, and then our Lord appears as a Ajita. Lord appears as Lord Ajita. Lord Vishnu appears as a Lord Ajita. And then after appearance of the Lord, again the lot of prayers goes into it. Again the prayers start. This. Okay. Yeah. Now again, demigods start putting their prayers to Lord Vishnu. Now this is another prayer. Elephants afflicted by a forest fire become very happy when they get water from the Ganges. Similarly, O my Lord, from whose navel grows a lotus flower, since you have now appeared before us, we have become transcendently happy. By seeing you, your Lordship, whom we have desired to see for a long time, we have achieved our ultimate goal of life. So beautiful prayers. So demigod is saying that we have achieved our ultimate goal by having your darshan. Now, after that, Vishnu being very pleased, or rather Lord Ajita being pleased, he gave a suggestion to demigods. What he says is that you are very weak at this point of time, so you should not go for any fight with the demons. Rather, you come to a sandhi or truce. You declare a truce, and then engage them, and together both of you go to try to chant the milk ocean, from where you will get a elixir of immortality or nectar. So then Devatas was a bit surprised why Lord is saying like this, not because normally Lord Vishnu, when Devata comes to him, Lord Vishnu overpower the demons and reinstate the Devatas. That's how normally he's done. He does. But at this point, Lord Vishnu Ajita is saying that no, you have to go for a churning of milk ocean, which is a very, very tedious job, time consuming and very tedious job. But as Lord said, Devatas, because they always abide by Lord, so they try to approach demons. So it goes to demons headed by Bali Maharaj, and tell them that we want to chant the milk ocean. It is very big job, we cannot do alone. So if you join, if we chant together, then we'll get a elixir of immortality, and we can share those elixir with you. And then they both demons, they are discussing among themselves. So it's a good idea. When we get the elixir, then we'll just give a slap to it, because the demigods are very weak at this point. We'll give them slap and drop them away, and we'll enjoy the whole elixir ourselves, and we'll become more powerful, and devatas will not be nowhere near to us. So with that in mind, they agreed to churning of milk ocean together. So, and then Lord give some other ideas also. He said that when you use Mandara mountain for churning as a churning rod, and snake Basuki as a churning rope, and remember, during this churning process, there may be some problems arise, and demons may shout on you, do some misbehaving, but don't divert your attention. You should have a single point attention to the nectar or elixir of immortality. That should be your target. That is going to make you to bring your glory back. So don't get diverted to any problems or any other alluring things. That's how Lord Ajita advised the demigods. So then they now demigods and demons together go to bring the Mandara mountain. The Mandara mountain is made up of gold and very huge. Now they lift the Mandara mountain and try to bring to the near to the milk ocean. But here a question may come: how a mountain is being lifted? It does not, for our sense, it doesn't make much sense. It looks like unscientific how a mountain is being lifted and being for as a churning rod. So now this is true, because when we look from our perspective. But if you look from the perspective of demon and demigods, they are so powerful than us. For example, if we keep a glass of water on a table, and one ant comes and try to push the glass of water, it cannot push it. Or all the thousands of lakhs of ants come together, they also cannot move this glass of water. But a human being, just with 2 fingers, he can lift the glass of water. So from ants' perspective, it's not possible to move the glass of water, but human can easily do it. Similarly, from our perspective, we think that this lifting of mountain is not possible, and it is true. But from the devata, demigod and demon's perspective, it is very much possible. So it is not unscientific, but it is called trans-scientific. That is, it is beyond the science, because science can deal with only the material things, gross material things. It cannot deal with the subtle things and the spirit which we have inside us. So that's why we cannot just buy into the logic of scientists, So then both demon and demigods take the mountain and bring to when they are taking it, is because of heaviness, they drop in between. Sometimes they drop it, and then some of the demon and demigods get crushed even under the mountain. So then the demigod again approaches to Lord Vishnu that we are in trouble, please help us. So Lord Vishnu comes, and he just with the left hand lift the mountain and put on the back of his Gadura. Now Gadura also have been empowered by the Lord to carry this mountain at that point of time. So Garuda take this mountain and the Lord and all the demons and demigods on the back of Garuda and bring to the milk ocean. So after coming to the milk ocean, the Lord says that Garuda, you need to leave from this place because we need to call Vasuki, for which we are going to use as a churning rope. So then Garuda leave the place and Vasuki comes in, and then churning starts. Now during churning, the head portion was held by demigods, and tail was held by demons, you know. But after some time, the demons said, why should we hold the tail? We are more powerful than demigods. We are more wise, you know, because they always think like that. So then we should not hold the tail portion. So they objected. No, we will not agree this. We need the head portion, you know. And then demigods remember Lord Vishnu's advice that if demons object something, you try to listen to them, because your aim should be the elixir of immortality, not anything else. So agree to whatever proposal they make. So they quickly listen to the demons and give the head portion. But after then the churning started. But after the churning starts, then all the gases and all the poisonous substance inside the stomach of the Vasuki, he was vomiting on the face of the demons, you know. So that all the demons' face become very black, and the demigods at that point are smiling, you know. So we can learn from here that the arrangement which is made by the Lord, we should listen to. We should not violate that, and we should not ask for what we want, you know. Why we want sometimes become very not very good thing for us, you know. So we should listen to the arrangement of the Lord, and that's what happened to the demons. Anyway, then the churning started, and from after churning, after a while, the first thing which comes out from churning is the very terrible poison. The poison is so strong, so powerful, that even the smell of the poison, or some demons and getting fainted because of the smell of the poison, you know. And he was threatening to kill the demons and the demigods and try to destroy even the whole world, you know. So then the demigods quickly approach Lord Vishnu, and we are in trouble, please save us. Lord Vishnu advises that you need to go to Lord Shiva, who can only save you from this. Not that Lord Vishnu can also save, but he want to give the credit to Lord Shiva. So all the demigods approach Lord Shiva that we are in trouble, please save us. So Lord Shiva asked Mother Parvati that I can do that, but I need your suggestion, your agreement, consent for this, you know, because you need to take care. I can bring the poison, but you will have to take care of me later on, you know. So then Mother Parvati said, no problem. I know that you are very powerful. Nothing is going to happen to you. Please go ahead, you know. Please help them. So Lord Shiva, being a Param Vaishnava, you know, Vaishnavanam Yatha Sangho Purananam Idam Tatha. So Param Vaishnava, Param Dayalu, you know, he cannot see the suffering of others. So Lord Shiva quickly agreed to that, and he went and take all the poison, make it concentrated by his mystic potency, and drink all the poison. So when he drank, and then his neck got very bluish in color, you know. So that's why we can see the color of his neck. And from that day onwards, Lord Shiva is also known as Nilkanta. But this blue color, Hare Krishna.
The slide has not changed from 8:6:17.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Lord Shiva, sorry, you're right, Prabhu. I should have done. No, so now, yeah, very good. Now, appearance of Lord Kurma. Before the Halahala Bish comes in, the Lord Kurma also appears, because the mountain was so heavy, it was going down. And then a demigod again approached Lord Vishnu. The Lord Vishnu appears as a Kurma avatar. So Lord take the shape of a very big kurma, who goes underneath the mountain, Mandra mountain, and lift it. So and then churning starts. So during churning, Lord was feeling very nice feeling on his back, you know. So and he take the service of the demigods by this appearance, you know. So Kurmadev ki jai. And then comes the Halahala Bish, you know. Then Halahala Bish comes out, and Lord Shiva, as I said before, Lord Shiva drank it, you know. So after drinking, when the poison has gone, and then again demigods and demons with enthusiasm start churning of the milk ocean again. So then a lot of other valuable objects come from churning. So we'll have a look what are the other objects comes. So first comes the 14 ratnas, gems emerged from the ocean that were divided among the devas and asuras. Demigods and demons, they 50-50, they take divide the 14 gems, you know. And then comes the wish granting cow named Kamdhenu. This Kamdhenu gives a lot of milk and pure milk. So it was taken by sages of Lord Vishnu, because the butter and ghee and milk, these are used by the sages, you know. So Kamdhenu was given to sages. And then comes 7-headed horse named Utsai Shravas. Okay. Also emerged from the ocean, which was taken by the demons, because demons, they like the powerful things, you know. So horse having very power, very high speed, so they wanted to take it, and demigods agreed to that, you know. Then comes a parijat tree that always blossomed, was taken by the heaven by the devatas. Devatas take the parijat tree. And then another tree which produces alcohol and wine named Baruni, and that was taken by Asura, because normal thing, they like it. So then comes the mother goddess of wealth, Lakshmi, comes out. So beautiful form of Lakshmi ji comes out from that churning. Now when Lakshmi ji comes, a lot of prayers takes place by the demigods to her, you know. And then after that, Lakshmi ji have a very beautiful garland on her hand, and I'll just read out the translation. It is given in Srimad Bhagavatam also. And the translation goes like this. Sukadev Goswami continued, in this way, after full deliberation, the goddess of fortune accepted Mukunda as her husband, because although he is independent and not in want of her, he possesses all transcendental qualities and mystic powers, and is therefore the most desirable, you know. So Lakshmi ji, what she was doing with her garland, she was roaming around looking for somebody who is having everything perfect, but she could not find anybody. Everybody have something or the other, weaknesses or drawbacks, you know. Somebody is very opulent, but he don't have power. Somebody is having a power, he don't have opulent or knowledge, you know, or renunciation. Something is or the other is missing in everybody. Then after, at the end, she saw Lord Vishnu, Mukunda, and she found that he is the man who is perfect in everything. So she put the garland on Mukunda and married Lord Vishnu. So like that, sorry, and then comes, after Lakshmi's appearance, then comes Chandra, moon comes, and moon is taken by Lord Shiva. Shiva is having a moon on his head, no? So that's the moon. And then comes Dhanvantari, the highlight of this story. Dhanvantari, the divine physician, emerged holding a pot of nectar, or elixir of immortality. Now Dhanvantari, if you go to Ayurveda, any clinic, you can see this picture of Dhanvantari with a nectar pot. You know, because they think that Dhanvantari is the origin of Ayurveda system, and if you take this Ayurveda system, you can become immortal. That's what the thinking of Ayurvedic people. Okay, then yeah, this is the Dhanvantari. Now, when the Dhanvantari came with the pot of the elixir of immortality, what the Asura, because they know they are powerful, demigods cannot do anything, so they snatched this pot and went away, you know. And then demigods, they are just looking that the nectar has come out and demons has taken the nectar. And then what demigods did? They approached the Lord Vishnu again. They approached Vishnu, and then Lord Vishnu, what he did? He appeared as a Mohini Mukti. Yeah, Lord incarnates as Mohini Mukti, just to save this nectar from from demons. Yeah, that's the Mohini Murti. Now this Mohini Murti is so beautiful that if we discuss the beauty of Mohini Murti, it's devastatingly beautiful. So it's given very nicely in Srimad Bhagavatam, the beauty of Mohini Murti. But now if we discuss, by discussing, we don't want to be devastated now, because we need to concentrate on the other things also. Rather than explaining or describing the beauty of Mohini Murti, we'll see what devastation this Mohini Murti caused to the demons. That will be very good. So let's go ahead with that. So Mohini Murti being very beautiful, when she arrived and she was casting her glance on the demons with her feminine expression also. So by seeing that, demons got very much captivated on the Mohini Murti, and they try to behave very nicely now. Before they were fighting. Sorry, when they took the pot, after taking the nectar pot, they are not able to drink. So it is because they are fighting with each other who will take this nectar first. So they could not utilize the nectar. So by the time the Mohini Murti comes, so by seeing the Mohini Murti, all the demons, they got so much of captivated by her beauty and feminine expression that they forgot. They thought that this Mohini Murti is more sweeter than the nectar, so they stopped fighting. And by seeing Mohini Murti, they try to behave very nicely because they want to impress her, So when she comes near to them, she asks, what's the problem? What happened? So they said that we have an elixir of immortality, but we don't know who should get first. So can you solve our problem? She said, no problem. I can do for you. I can even help you. I can serve you with that. They say, oh, that would be so nice if you serve us. So here we can see that demons normally don't accept anybody's judgment. But Mohini Murti, by seeing Mohini Murti, they have agreed that you are the judge. Whatever you say, we are going to listen. So that's how the power of illusion. Yeah, power of illusion. So they accept Mohini Murti to serve them. So Mohini Murti said, no problem. Then I am going to serve, but whatever I say, you have to listen. They said, no problem. You are everything for us. Whatever you say, we are going to listen. So Lord Mohini said that you sit on a line, and I will make Devata also sit another line. And Devatas, they're like a kid, they're small kid. They don't know how to behave, etiquette, they don't know anything, So I'll just give on and drop to the all the demigods, and then everything, all the nectar will be given to you, so you can relish. Okay, because you are good people, you have a patience, you're a wise person, so you can wait for some time, Let's just give on and drop to everybody. So Mohini Murti kept her glance on the demons and trying to feed this nectar to all the demigods one by one, So after sometimes almost all the nectar finished. And then one of the demon, whose name is Rahu, he came to dal mein kuch kala lagta hai yaar. So the nectar is almost going to finish, and we are just watching it. So what he does, he prefer not to inform all the demons. Rather, he by disguise he goes as a dress. He took the dress of a demigods and sit between moon and Surya, Chandra and Surya. And then Mohini Murti, without recognizing him, she tried to feed Rahu. But after seeing that Chandra and Surya, they inform Mohini Murti that this is not a demigod, he's a demon. So why you are feeding him? So after recognizing him, Mohini Murti took her what to call Sudarshan Chakra and chop his head. So, but before chopping his head, the nectar already went to his mouth, and because of that, his head becomes immortal. And that's why still we can see between Chandra and Surya, the Rahu appears, occasionally. So that's how and then all the nectar finishes. Mohini Murti gives all the nectar to demigods and finishes, and then take his original form of four-handed form of Lord Vishnu and sit on Garuda and say Tata. But saying Tata, he disappears. So that's how we end the story of churning of milk ocean. But now we need to see how can we apply this in other circumstances, other places. So other important Manthan in devotee's life. Now Manthan of our heart. Now we can question that heart is so small. Manthan of milk ocean, how can we bring it to Manthan of a heart? But that's right, heart is very small. But if you see, it is oceanic in nature also. If we see in terms of the desire it possesses, our heart possesses endless desire. It's not only endless in numbers, but even endless is types of desire. Different types of desires we have, varieties of desire, and some of the desire is so bad, so nasty that it can degrade us down to very low level. And there are some desire which is very good, and if you can utilize that, apply our life to our life, then we can uplift ourselves to a very high level, even to Krishna Prema. But thing is that as all the desires are mixed together, we cannot apply or utilize these good desires. That's why the churning is required. See, in the ocean also, nectar and the poison both are there together. All the valuable items also are there together, but they are of no use unless they churn it or take it out. Similarly, we need to churn our heart so that the bad desire goes from, we can distinguish between the bad and good desires, and we need to bring the good desire out of our heart, and let that dominate our life, so that we can move forward to our Krishna conscious process and get liberation. Now, how to chant our heart? The best way to chant our heart is which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. With that, we can cleanse our heart and we can gain enlightenment. We can distinguish between which is good and bad, which is good desire, and let that good desire dominate our life. So that's how chanting of heart. And then chanting of Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, we can see a lot of things are there. We have like Arjuna's attachment to material things, his delusion. He didn't want to listen to Krishna for fighting. So those things are the bad things or negative things which we need to get rid of. And there are a lot of yoga process. We have Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, then Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. But all this yoga we're not going to use in our life. We need that. That's why we need to chant this, and take the nectar from the Bhagavad Gita, which is Bhakti Yoga, devotional process. And that's why Jagjivan Prabhu is taking our Bhakti Briksha, he's taking Bhagavad Gita class every day. I mean, every week he's doing this churning in his home, making this presentation for us and bringing and feed us with the nectar of Bhagavad Gita, that devotional process. So that's why the churning of Bhagavad Gita also required. In fact, the churning is applies in every stage of our life. Now, Manthan is a churning in a practical life, in material law. So I work in a refinery company where we take out the crude oil from the ground, which is a mixture of so many elements. Is having kerosene, diesel, naphtha, gases, sulfur, and something very good elements, and some is very good components, and very bad components, which is very harmful. Now they are so mixed together that whole things, crude oil is good for nothing. If somebody give you on crude oil container, you can do anything with that, and you cannot even get rid of that. You don't know where to put this. You cannot throw this somewhere. So it's a big problem. It's good for nothing. So that's why we need to churn. We need to send this crude oil through a process whereby we distinguish the good and bad elements and use for our purposes. So that's why the churning is very much applicable in many places. So now then I'll go for the comparison of churning of ocean and churning of our heart. I have another file for this. Yeah, okay, this is the Now we're going to compare this chanting of the milk ocean with the chanting of our heart. It's very, very good. Please try to concentrate on this. Now, if we see the during the story, we have storyline. If we remember, first what happens is that in chanting of milk ocean, the pride of demigods made the downfall. Durvasa Muni give them a curse. And then fight between demon and demigod starts, and then demigod takes shelter of Lord Brahma. Then Lord Brahma take them to Lord Vishnu, and then demigod listen to whatever Lord Vishnu instructed them. They listen to it, and then chanting start, and poison comes out, and then demigod approach Lord Vishnu for help. Lord Vaishnava, Lord Shiva, and then after the poison, Vaishnava, and then after that poisons comes out. Poison is taken by poison, and other gems comes out, and then then Mother Lakshmi comes out. Then what happens? Then Dhanvantari comes out with the nectar. Now we're going to relate this or compare this storyline with our chanting of our heart one by one. Let's see. So, due to lack of Krishna consciousness, our pride increases, leading to our downfall by making our intelligence weaker than the Shadarupa. So, every one of us have a Shadarupa, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, and Matsarya. Now, because of lack of Krishna consciousness, our intelligence become weaker, and this Shadarupa become stronger. Okay, and then what happens? Our downfall starts. So we do all recall unwanted activities and upset our senior devotees, Guru and Srila Prabhupada. So in Guru Ashtaka, you can see reference shloka here. Yasya prasadan na gati kuto hapi. So because of the lack of Krishna consciousness and influence of the Shadarupa, we behave in such a way that we upset our senior Vaishnavas. And then what happens? Our downfall starts. And similarly, Amanitam Adam Vitan, I have taken up this shloka before. So humility, pridelessness is the knowledge. So that's why. So this is similar like what happened to the demons. And then what happened in the story, that fighting between demigod and demon took place. So similarly, there is a fight between our intelligence and our Shadarupa. Buddhi and Shadarupa, there is always fighting. And most of the cases, because of our lack of Krishna consciousness, the Shadarupa is winning. This is being empowered. Okay, and then what happened? Demigod takes shelter. Okay, so when Shadarupa get empowered, what we need to do? Demigod went to Lord Brahma. Similarly, we need to go to our senior devotees, like Jajivan Prabhu is there, our Guru is there, Srila Prabhupada. We need to take shelter of them. Okay, and then Lord Brahma, what he does? He take all the demigods to the Lord Vishnu. Similarly, if we approach our senior Vaishnava and Guru, they are going to guide us to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the Supreme Lord Krishna. And then what happens? Demigod listen to instruction of the Lord. Yeah. Similarly, we need to listen to the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and chant our heart. Cheto darpana marchanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. So then, during chanting of milk ocean, poison comes out. Similarly, when we start chanting of our heart or through the chanting of Mahamantra, you see in the beginning, all the bad thinking will come when we start chanting. Like if you want to clean a house full of dust, what happens when you clean the dust? All the dust will come up, and you cannot see anything. Similarly, when we chanting in the beginning, all the bad things will come. Even 20 years before somebody took 20 rupees, that also will come to your mind and disturb your chanting. Then what to do that time? Let's see what demigod did. Demigod approached Vaishnava. Lord Shiva, they approached Lord Shiva. The poison came out, and then they approached Lord Shiva. Similarly, when the problems comes during our chanting, we need to approach our senior Vaishnava and get that advice. Vaishnava, Nigama Kalpa, Nimna Ganam Yatha Ganga, Devanam Achyuta Yatha, Vaishnavanam Yatha Sambhu, Purananam Idam Tata. Vaishnava is Param Dayalu. So when you approach them, they will guide you what to do. So now after poison, gems and other attractive things comes up. during chanting. Now, similarly, during our chanting, when after chanting, we see that our Shalaripu our intelligence will be overpowering the Shalaripu. Then what happened? We'll be behaving well, we'll take care of our health, we'll do nice things, we'll probably get some social opulences, and we'll get some promotion. Then what happens is, because of this social influence, we'll take the chanting beat and put on the shelf, because we'll think that no, the chanting beat has done his job. I am now socially opulent, I have got a good job, good promotion, so I don't need to chant. So that is very big problem. Similarly, you see the demigods, a lot of attractive thing comes, but Lord said your focus should be single pointed concentration on the nectar. You should not be allured by anything else. So we should not be allured by these social opulences. We should, what we should do? Yeah, next point, we should not get too attracted to the gems, but to continue churning of the milk ocean. Similarly, we should keep chanting. We should not get attracted by these social opulences, but we should keep chanting. So there's another shloka here. Na dhanam na janam, in Shikshastakam, na dhanam na janam, na sundarim kavitam, na jagadish shakamai. So I don't need anything else, but I don't need anything else yet. So similarly, we should not get allured by this social opulences and promotion. And then after that, Mother Lakshmi comes. But what Mother Lakshmi did? She offered herself to Lord Vishnu. Similarly, in our life, whatever wealth we have, wealth means Lakshmi, what we have, we should think that this belongs to Lord Krishna. And we can utilize for our sustenance so that we can serve him. And then balance, we should utilize for the service of the Lord. As Mother Lakshmi give herself to Lord Vishnu. And then Devata kept chanting the milk ocean. And then we should also keep on chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Yeah. Now, after getting the nectar, what happened to Devatas? They became immortal. But this immortality is not eternal. This is a comparative term. Means it is also having an end. Only thing is, comparative to their existing lifespan, it has become very big. That's what this immortality means. But what happens to devotees who are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra? After getting the real taste of Harinam, one get Lord's mercy and liberation from this material world. So this Harinam is much more powerful than the nectar or elixir of immortality, who is demigod God. Now with Amrit or elixir of immortality, demigods got only long life, which will come to an end. I've told that. Okay, then and then with Harinam, we are going to go beyond the birth and death. So that's why we should understand that Harinam Amrit is more powerful than the elixir of immortality. So we should hanker for this Harinam Amrit. So that's how we now with the takeaway. Unlike in spiritual world, in the material world, there is nothing absolutely good or absolutely bad. It is all mixture of good and bad elements which need to be identified by churning. To make it identified and usable for us, churning is required under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then, through our heart, though our heart is small, the desire in it is oceanic in nature. There are very bad and very good desires which needs to be taken out by churning and used for our spiritual progress and serve the Lord. And the best process of chanting the heart is by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which cleanses our heart, enlightens us, and leads to Krishna Prem. That's how I end my presentation, and thank you so much for all the devotees for listening attentively to this beautiful Leela of the Lord, and thank you so much. Any questions, Prabhuji? Nice.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Very nice presentation, Prabhu, with good pictorial representations, and this Excel sheet comparison was very nice. So I would request you to try and copy paste it into the main presentation when you share it to Santa Gopeshwar Prabhu, so that people don't miss it. Maybe it will come as 3 or 4 slides, but still it is worth, so that it is part of the main presentation. So
Yes,
that
yes.
is my request. We have time to take one question, and I have one thing which I would like to share, if you don't mind, Sumangal Prabhu. There
Yes,
is
Prabhu.
one shloka which is coming in the 7th chapter of the 8th canto, which talks about the sacrifice of saintly persons, which is an analogy when Lord Shiva drank the poison. So I would just try to share the shloka. I think it is coming in 44. 1 minute.
Go to internet first.
So just this is one shloka which we will try to chant. In the meanwhile, if anybody has any questions, they can think about that. It says, Tapyante lokatapena sadava prayasho janaha parama aradanam tadhi purushasya akila atmanah. So it says, it is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. So basically, when common people suffer, to alleviate the suffering, it is said that saintly people take voluntary suffering. So the example of Srila Prabhupada and His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj are very valid examples. So thank you once again, Prabhu. I would request devotees to post any further questions which they have on the group chat, on the meeting chat, or on the WhatsApp group. So I request Jagan Prabhu to share his comments and feedback. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sumangal Prabhu, very, very good presentation. Simple, sweet, and very nice rendition of the pastime. And also, I think the application that you brought into the Manthan, the concept of the churning of heart, I think is wonderful. Wonderful way of understanding the pastime and to apply that pastime, and at least to get a knowledge and the idea to apply the pastime in real life. I think is amazing. In the beginning of the beginning portion of your session, it's also very, very, very noticeable your experience to teach children. Very, very good, nice way you were telling the story. That also shows that you've grown as a teacher to the students quite a lot. And in the second half, you took us to the elders class in a very seamless manner. That means you as a teacher was teaching a topic for 4th and 5th grade students, and then without their knowledge, you seamlessly moved to another class where there are students from 20 years to 60 years, and you handle them with very good ease, satisfying both their needs. That's a wonderful thing. So we humbly request you to cultivate this very nice way of taking sessions. Very, very inspiring. Thanks a lot. And just to the audience, I also wanted to tell Sumangal Prabhu is one of those very practical devotees whose service, apart from whatever service he does, and a service which many of us do not actually do the way he does it, is the devotee care. He's one of those people, a prominent leader, I would say, in gardens when it comes to devotee care. So he's a very big inspiration to many of us. He not only, devotee care doesn't end with only the spiritual thing. He also is a campaigner for good health. He's also conducting some sessions on the exercises and all. Safety, health, is a big campaigner, so he's a very, very good. Thanks a lot. But only thing, as an elder brother, I would like to say that one guideline he has not followed today is that taking the names of some devotees of the organizing devotees, like my name or Bandhu Baljas. My name was particularly there even in the slide. So I request all the devotees who are coming in the class, try to follow the guideline. There's no need to glorify or mention the servants of this program or the servants of this yatra or servant of this region, because it's just being done in that mode of, so let we be in the mood of servant. So kindly refrain from that in the at least this kind of forums. Otherwise, Prabhu, this session will be remembered by many of us for a long time. Manthan of heart is going to be theme for many of us even after this program ends, for sure. And your Excel will be a very good thing. And I'm taking the liberty to tell you, I'm going to use that in several other places in our sessions. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Excellent, Prabhu. Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your good words. I'm not qualified for your what you said actually. So, but your blessings and Mataji's blessings and all of the blessings. Hopefully, we can progress in our Krishna consciousness. Please bless us, bless me, Prabhuji, so that I can progress in our sadhana and Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna Sumangal Prabhu. Thank you once again. Hare Krishna Jagan Prabhu. Thank you for the nice comments. The way Jagan Prabhu explained that he transitioned from children's class to adults class was very amazing and interesting explanation. So we will move on to today's quiz. Over to you, Santa Gopeshwar Prabhu. Hare Krishna.